Welcome back to the Neurodiverse Voices podcast, and hello, season 4. I'm your host, Andrea Costa, and I'm so grateful to have you on that side. Over the past 3 seasons, we've shared honest, powerful, real stories from neurodivergent people, their families, educators, and mental health researchers. And together, we've been part of a growing movement towards understanding, acceptance, and embracing difference. This season, we are going even deeper. We will be exploring late diagnoses, masking burnout, menopause, mental health, and how neurodivergence intersects with identity, culture, and lived experience. You'll hear from creative minds, parents, and most importantly, from neurodivergent people themselves in all their complexity and brilliance. So, whether you've been with us from the very beginning or this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. This space is for you. Let's begin season 4 of the Neurodiverse Voices podcast. Hi, everyone. Today's a very special day because I know my guest since last year, and I learned a whole lot from her already. And I'm pretty sure all of you will learn as much or even more because I'm also learning new things today from her. So she's the development lead at Neurodiverse Connection, and she specializes in body-mind diversity, embodiment, and spiritual needs. Hi, Kay.
Hi, Andrea. I'm delighted to be here and to connect in this different environment with you.
Thank you. It's I'm very grateful to you for you to being part of the Neurodiverse Voices podcast, and I'm very excited to find out more about you. So why don't we start with you telling us a bit more about your neurodivergence and how you had your diagnosis later in life?
Absolutely. I'll try and keep it short. So, yes, I am very late diagnosed autistic. And when I got my diagnosis, I think I was 47. They also said you meet the criteria for ADHD, but do you want to go on the waiting list? And I said yes, but we're 5 years in or longer, and I don't know whether that will happen. In terms of discovery of it, my children were late diagnosed neurodivergent in sixth form, and it was pretty clear to me that I was also neurodivergent. And when I discussed it with my family and with my husband, he said, yes, you know, I have never doubted it, but, you are who you are. But it felt important for me to pursue the diagnosis, to validate the challenges I'd had in my life, and also because I knew that I wanted to work in neurodivergent advocacy, and it felt really important for me to go through the services and the NHS diagnosis and experience that. It felt really important as part of the future work that I've gone on to do.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And what signs did you notice? Let's be a bit more specific, if you don't mind now. What signs did you notice in yourself that made you realize, besides, there's many parents like myself going through the same, but what were the specific signs you noticed?
So, special interests, passions, deep passions, monotropic nervous system, based in nervous system, so interest-based nervous system. It's like total immersion at the exclusion of everything else that was around me when I was working with my passions. But for me, predominantly, it's the hyper sensory experiences. So sensory processing difference in terms of everything's big and amplified, and emotionally as well. So I'm not alexithemic. I have hyper interoceptive awareness. That means internal awareness. And so I had a very outdated view of what being autistic was, and so it hadn't connected the dots. But obviously, as my children went through the diagnostic process and I read about it, I was like, oh, especially as it presents, it's 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 been missed, I think, in women and girls, that I kind of added the joined the dots, and it was the sensory processing aspect and the deep feeling and the hyper empathy, which we don't always see in the diagnostic criteria as it's presented. I started to make those connections.
Yeah. Many of us used to have an outdated definition of autism until very recently. So it's not surprising that, again, many of us go through this when our children are diagnosed. So how did getting the diagnosis helped you with your self-understanding?
Such a good question. I have had a mixed journey post-diagnosis. It helped me with my understanding in that it explained the misdiagnosis and the challenges that I'd had, where there seemed no apparent reason for it, like the chronic burnout, particularly the catastrophic burnout that I had when I was in my late 30s and early 40s. And then it has actually helped me to depathologise myself.
Okay.
So it is who I am. I don't have a disorder. I'm not deficient. That's how I see it. I'm just autistic. I'm neurodivergent. My neurotype is different. So I don't look externally for an explanation of there's something in me I need to fix. It's just who I am. It's taken me a while post-diagnostic to get to that diagnosis, sorry, but that's where I am now, and there's a liberation in that I can't change this. I don't need to do any more work on myself.
Yep.
Yeah, but it took a while to get to that. There's a lot of grief.
Yeah, that's actually my next question. What did you feel about it? Did you feel grief? So I think some relief eventually, but were you at some point in denial, for example?
Yeah, I when the practitioner said yes, without a shadow of a doubt, you meet the criteria. I said, are you really sure? Are you absolutely sure? So there was a denial and a doubting of it. And then immediately post-diagnosis, there was a lot of shock when I read some of the statistics about the health outcomes. I can still feel the emotion around that, and the impact it has on our physical health as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there's still a grieving there that is the potential outcome of being autistic, or can lead to that. So there was a grieving process, the normal disbelief and bargaining, and are you sure? And no, I'm not, and all the rest of it. And then eventually the acceptance, that final stage of grief, has allowed me to find a liberation in it. So yeah, it's been a huge roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah. And what helped you most in the early days after finding that you were neurodivergent?
I was really lucky that I was already connected with Neurodiverse Connection.
Yeah.
I if I hadn't had that community, that group of neurodivergent people that I was connected with, I may have got lost actually in searching for the correct literature for me to make sense of my diagnosis. But being part of Neurodiverse Connection, I was immersed in up-to-date research, other communities that were in that advocacy realm, and that was the most supportive network in my coming to terms with understanding myself.
So important, isn't it? You could think about, there's many toolkits that we can use and strategies, but I think the community that's around us is key for us to, you know, be just who we are and be ourselves and support. And the neurodivergent community is incredible. So
Definitely.
yeah, definitely. And you mentioned, for example, chronic burnout. So when you look back, are there moments in your life that make more sense now to you? I think you kind of answered this, but with the chronic burnout, were there any diagnoses, for example, of depression and anxiety? Were you feeling like that before getting to the stage of burnout every time it would happen?
Yes, I can see lots of mini burnouts. So around exam periods at school and then in university, quite a major burnout in my final year. Um, and at each of those stages, I was seeking help, but not really but getting those misdiagnoses in the mental health arena and realm. But the worst burnout, so that late 30s, early 40s, I'd had um, the the complex trauma diagnosis. It actually led me into understanding my being neurodivergent, but the trauma was as a result of being neurodivergent and not having my needs met, as well as some other issues. So I can see that, and also how I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, so I had a chronic pain diagnosis, which is the pain is manageable now if I meet my sensory needs. So I can see how all of the other diagnoses were not having my neurodivergent needs met because I
Which
don't,
is very common.
yeah, and I wouldn't say I would meet any of those criteria now, really, if I live as my body mind needs me to live.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think the way your neurodivergence shows up is different from how it's usually described?
Without, yes.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, without a doubt. I was going to say that, but I think I don't know. I can't make a judgment for anybody else. But for me, that body mind piece, that connectivity of that this is a whole holistic experience of body and mind together and working in union. We're seeing that more coming in the literature and the writing, but it's not fully reflected, I don't think, in the diagnosis process or really in the services understanding. Does that answer the question?
Yes, and it's not just the services. Like, until I took the neurodivergent well-being approach course that we will talk about later, I never thought about it. Yes, I knew that mind and body are connected, but I think it's about having that understanding of yourself. And I still don't practice most of the things that I learned with you because I find it quite difficult. But at least you are aware of it, and I think that's very important. Yeah. Okay, now moving on to another topic that's quite important related to neurodivergence, and I don't see it being as talked or yes, I don't see much conversation about it yet. Is menopause, and I'm curious to know how did perimenopause or menopause affect you as a neurodivergent person?
I actually don't know where to begin with my answer with that one, because every day there's a different impact. So just yesterday I was at the dentist with gum challenge, and he said, "Oh yeah, that can be a hormonal experience, but because I'm hypersensory, um, the sensation of the gum difficulty is like amplified."
Yeah,
I don't see that being talked about. I didn't even know it could affect your gums. Menopause, just in the general health literature, but
exactly.
it certainly then you bring it into the kind of neurodivergent arena, and there's very little. There's some research starting that we're starting to see at NDC, at Neurodiverse Connection. But how has it affected me? Well, hormones have always been my menstrual cycle has always been a challenge. I've been the opposite to what the literature says. So I find estrogen incredibly challenging. I need less estrogen in HRT than I need more progesterone, which is not what typically a GP
Yeah.
would prescribe. Um, I found a menopause. I was very lucky. My local GP was menopause trained and said, "Oh yes, I'm seeing a pattern that in menopause neurodivergent people might need more progesterone, but there's no literature out there." She said. So hormonally, I've always struggled with cycles because I feel everything big, the mood dysregulation, and also the sensory experience of menopause, the hot flashes, the burning skin. It's just bigger. But I think the biggest impact is that, just to reiterate what I said, I think neurodivergent embodiment doesn't necessarily follow the pattern of the neuronormative lens that we've taken on menopause research.
Right.
So until we have that, I don't think we're going to have a full picture, because I have lived that experience.
Yeah.
The typical advice hasn't been helpful at times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's continue talking about it and hopefully inspire. We actually have a conference coming up soon, so that's going to be a good opportunity to bring that up to the conversation with the mental health researchers. So let's see. And was it a turning point that helped you realized, well, you're neurodivergent? No, because I think from my understanding, you were diagnosed before, or was it during menopause?
It was during
During,
perimenopause.
yeah.
Yeah. And the burnout was also exacerbated by incorrect hormone protocols. So I'm going to share because it's fine. I had been given a Mirena coil, so my estrogen and progesterone levels were so finely balanced that it swung me, I think, into early menopause. Because when the coil was removed, I was able to balance out for a while and then go into natural perimenopause. So because of the waiting process of the waiting list to be diagnosed, I went onto the waiting list, I think when I was 37, a little bit later, 39, and then it took, I think, about 5 years for me to get through because we had COVID through the
Yeah.
diagnostic process. Around that, I've probably got my timeline slightly wrong, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I too had a Mirena coil. I removed it now, and I feel a lot better. But I was told when I replaced it that it's actually amazing during menopause, that it reduces your symptoms, and you should keep it on. And I'm so glad I removed it because I feel so much better with myself. I was having loads of low moods as well, just before the cycle, after the cycle. It was, yes. So I, I see I understand now. I wasn't expecting us to have this conversation because this happened a few weeks ago or a couple of months ago, that I removed it. But yeah, I totally agree. And I add my lived experience onto that as well. So what helped you manage menopause and the neurodivergent traits at the same time?
Being relentlessly persistent with the GP to get to the right HRT protocol. I'm now on kind of the best that the NHS can provide. So the biochemical or whatever it is, identical eutogesterone tablets, which is a really good progesterone for me, and estrogel. So, but they tried to fob me off with antidepressants and like just patches, but I'm allergic to the plasters and various things. So that helped me getting the right. I could not have got through it without HRT. And I use a lot of holistic practices, as you know, Andrea, but no, I needed that help. And developing a good relationship with my health provider, and naming the neurodivergence. This, you might not see in me what you would expect to see or typically see. So work with me here and listen. And then recognizing that executive functioning is affected, and so is kind of energy pockets and burnout, and we have to be more, well, I found I had to be more gentle and compassionate, and even more attentive to my body needs during this time. because it affects the neurodivergent traits or aspects that I have, but primarily it's energy and executive functioning that I find are affected. Obviously, mood. We're always working with our mood. But they're the two that I found the biggest change. So brain fog of menopause.
Yeah.
Really, you have brain fog when you're neurodivergent if you're heading to burnout, don't you? So it's like, which of the two, and how can I support myself holistically through this?
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you wish that more people understood about how menopause and neurodivergence can interact? Because again, it's not much talked about yet.
Not yet. I think the biggest gift we could give neurodivergent people as researchers and health services is to understand the impact of their hormones on their whole body mind experience, and that neurodivergence can be atypical to what we've already know. So what the advice I would give is mental health services. Are you talking about cycles? Are you even recognizing someone's hormonal profile and how that impacts, and how you're supporting it, and how the hormones you have might actually be at the detriment to that person? Because I mean, I don't have the answer to this, because the research doesn't give me the answers. I just have
Yeah.
my lived experience of it.
Yeah. Good. So again, let's keep talking about it, and hopefully we'll start seeing some innovations in research in the future. So now moving forwards to the neurodivergent well-being approach training, which was what connected both of us. It was a course that I took last year, and I really enjoyed it. My first question is, what has inspired you to create the neurodivergent well-being approach course through Neurodiverse Connection?
Yeah, sure. So Jill, who is the director at Neurodiverse Connection, connected me through some creative writing work that I'd done. And I'd written a book called Mentorship with Goddess, which was like a holistic, quite a spiritually lens well-being approach for women and girls, like a rite of passage. So through menarche, your first period, or through your perimenopause journey. And we had a discussion about whether some of the content could be recreated in a way that was evidence-based, and also could speak less spiritually, but actually speak to neurodivergent people. And I said, absolutely, I'll give this a go. This is when I was an associate with NDC, and then I created the course, and we did a pilot run, and I've learned so much through each iteration of how I've honed it and tinkered and moved some of the content around to meet the needs of the community. Now it runs as a holistic wellbeing approach for neurodivergent people, lived experience. It's an experience to share model. So you really come to the course to experience and to be curious about your own well-being as a practitioner, or as a carer, or as a neurodivergent person, so that you can then take it out. And it's mind, body, spirit in its lens. Does that answer the question?
I think it does.
Yeah.
Very well. um, so you talk about going back to what you said, about being more aware, especially with chronic burnout, but you talk about less is more, and going at a gentle pace is why is it this important in the work, and throughout the course it's something that we learn.
Yes. So part of my liberation, I keep using that word, or route into being more accepting of myself and being more well generally, is that I instead of coming top down towards becoming well, I went bottom up. So nervous system approach, and taking a nervous system lens on well-being. And the nervous system lens is all about going slow and steady. Because if we do anything too much, too soon, too quickly for our nervous systems, it takes us out of our what's called our window of tolerance, our zone of regulation, our capacity, and it takes us back to square one, or even back minus to square one, if that makes sense. So less is more, and for neurodivergent people, that's vital because we may need more processing time, more space generally. And so I don't always get it right. Sometimes I go too fast myself, especially if I'm nervous or anxious about like something or want to get it right. I can go too fast, or excited. I want to share information. But generally, slow and steady, less is more, is holistically best for our body minds as neurodivergent people, and is the route into wellness. Not so easy in the structures that we live in.
That's what I was thinking. We live in such an overwhelming world
Mm.
full of information. And yeah, after with the increase in life demands at some point, after you become parents and you have a household to manage, and then you also, I'm talking about myself now, and you also have your career, and you also have your passions and your projects. So it feels sometimes like we are in automatic pilots mode, and it's very, very difficult to calm ourselves down. So yes, as I said, I learned a lot with you, but I'm still working on practicing and
Me,
applying.
me too.
And you too?
I openly say this when I'm facilitating. I do not get it right. I try to practice what I offer to people. But if I'm in a monotropic tunnel, like a hyper-focused tunnel, I will not move my body as I'm supposed to, and I will go faster than my body can. I'm processing
Yep.
faster than my body can take. So there's the joy aspect of that, but there's also the demands coming externally at me, um, and that's been part of my learning with this, is that I really wanted everybody to experience this, but I have a much more realistic lens on what is manageable for people to receive when I'm teaching this content. I've got so much more compassion for people's what capacity of what they can take from the learning and what they can apply, and so I'm a lot more gentle now.
Yeah, and it's great to have your honesty about it. It's not like you are kind of teaching us how to do it, and saying, oh, because I do all of this very well. No, I think that's one of the things that makes a big difference in the course as well, is to have you as the lead. And that's actually my next question, goes to differences. So how is this course different from any traditional well-being or mental health support courses?
Yeah, sure. So I endeavour to the best of my ability to remove the power dynamics, and that I'm the expert and have it all sorted, and I know everything, and I'm teaching.
Yeah.
It's much more of a circular structure, and we're co-creating together and sharing, and I'm offering you a lived experience. So, and the model is, as I've said earlier, experience to share. So it's an experiential. People, I think, can struggle with this, that they want someone to give them answers and passively absorb. It's not a course to passively absorb content. It's for you to engage with it at your own pace, and be curious. Um, it's an investigative course about yourself. It's very meta, isn't it? It's you're
Yeah.
observing yourself as you go through it. Um, so that's what I endeavour to do. It's not therapeutic. I'm not a therapist. So I bring myself to it. And again, that can be different to what people have experienced before. I think.
Yeah.
I hope that's your experience anyway.
Yes, it was definitely. And
Yeah.
have you received any feedback? Can you share any feedback that you've got on the course from participants?
Yeah, we do get mixed feedback, and so there's a side that people that are very, you know, want a training model. It's not like that. It's not kind of, I'm not doing to you. And then we have the feedback also, that this is something I've never experienced before. I'll take just one part. This feel like it's the missing piece.
Mhm.
I hadn't even considered I had a body.
Yes.
Oh my, wouldn't I didn't think I was creative. That really, resonates for me as an ex-teacher. Oh, I thought because I was aphantasia, I didn't have a mind's eye, I couldn't access these ideas. So yeah, that's usually the feedback we get.
Yeah, that's really good. And I can just add on to the positive because, as I said, to me, just being aware of all of this, and I really like the fact. So I learned so many terms like aphantasia, and I'm going to try to say this word. I'm never able to say it. Alexithymia. Yep. That, I, yeah, I wasn't aware of before. So I like the fact that you start with the basics and you teach all the terms and all about neurodiversity, and then we start delving on into ourselves. So there's a lot of positives, and I would recommend everyone to go and have a look at the Neurodiverse Connection website that I will link, and look at the next cohorts, because I know they are on at the moment. And also, I just wanted to share with you that actually our group, we stayed in touch. So we have a WhatsApp group. And yes, we are a bit of a support community to one another. So I hope that makes you happy.
It really does, yeah. Because of the boundaries, obviously, I said we can't oversee it, and so often I don't know what happens next. I'm
Yeah,
really delighted. You're a fantastic group, so I'm
yeah,
delighted.
good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And what are your hopes for the future of the neurodivergent well-being approach course?
My hope is is that we start to bring. There's not going to be any major change without research. I know that. So my hope is that we start to see a movement to bottom-up approaches within research to neurodivergent support and service provision. Um, and so this isn't just the sensory environment. This is about relationships and
Yep.
the primacy, the importance of relationships for well-being and regulation. So that's my hope. I'm hoping there's something on the horizon coming with that in my own work at NDC. But also just anybody who's in research listening, if this is new, then if that can be considered, that would be a great hope for the future.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, now moving on to living, working, and embodiment. How does your neurodivergence shape how you work and support others?
So So how it works, I feel like I manage myself, my work, and being my body, being neurodivergent. Like I've got three things that and obviously my family and everything, my
Yeah.
own children. But uh, yeah, it's an added. In education, we call it the third curriculum. So you have a neurodivergent learner, and they're doing the school curriculum, and then they're doing, sorry, a second curriculum, then like trying to work with the curriculum through their neurodivergence. How it helps me to support other people is I, I, I really like learning about how people think. And I love learning about what makes people tick and how their mind bodies work. So it actually, I'm very creative, I think, in how I work with people and assume to the best of my ability nothing, and ask and check in how it when we're relating and when we're working together, how it works for them. Um, was that did that answer that?
Yes, yes, definitely. And I think it all goes back to being curious. You know, many times I say this, and that's one of the things I've been learning with my previous podcast guests. And I say that it's not rocket science to support neurodivergence. You know, if we think about children in school, for example, and the education system, you know, ask and just be curious how you can support whoever you're dealing with or supporting. So yeah, curiosity is I think the foundation for many things, and we shouldn't have to overcomplicate. Which I think we do a lot, and sometimes it's quite simple to be able to support better the neurodivergent community. Yeah. And what are some of your favorite strengths that come from being neurodivergent?
Um,
It's always difficult to answer this
it
question, isn't
is,
it?
it is. I'm thinking, I think for me, because I'm autistic ADHD, agility. So I've got these two sides to being neurodivergent of really deep hyperfocus and absorption and flow states. And then I've also got this agility, looking at things that are all different. If you've got this is basically my mind, these two
Yeah.
strands. And I think that is quite for me, I can be in conflict internally with myself, but I think it gives me a strength, yeah, of being able to really deeply focus and then jump out and look at lots of different things and then go back in. Yeah.
Yep. I totally relate to that. Even though sometimes I feel more like I could be on hyper focus for longer, and when I have interruptions, I really don't like it because yeah. So it's one or one or the other. That's something I need to work on myself. But yeah, I totally agree with you. And yeah, I'm sure you have other amazing strengths, but I feel you. It's quite difficult to analyze yourself and answer strengths. Maybe if which is something wrong actually, because if people ask you what are your weaknesses, you probably are able to respond quicker, and it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what helps you feel connected to your body and grounded, especially on other days?
So my feet. I mean, I'm standing up now while we're recording this. But as I talk, I'm fully connected to my feet and the back of my body. And the feet and the back of my body are, well, obviously I'm grounding, but also the back of the body is reminding me to lean back, which is more of a parasympathetic state than a activated state. So that they are the two. But also I call it practicing the presence of pause. Or the so taking a moment to just stop for a second. Don't always remember when I'm in a monotropic flow, I will forget. But trying to do that. But for example, in a podcast now, it's always remembering to go even slower than what might want to come out, and deliberately doing the slow and steady, less is more. Um, and then I swim. I, I'm orienting now as I'm thinking. I'm looking outside at nature. Um, I'm only just learning how important rest is, even if I can't sleep. So going into that lying down position, moving the body out of the horizontal. Um, and yeah, I just did. Yeah, I think they're the main ones. But I guess also hydrating, remembering to move my body. It's actually quite basics. The nervous system needs very basic things: hydration, movement, checking in on temperature, using the toilet when we need to, standing when we need to. They're like the key basics, which are so hard to remember.
I know, I know
Yeah.
very well. Eating, toilets, drinking, especially drinking. Yeah, I force myself to go and grab a drink, but it's not easy. Um, but yeah, it's about being compassionate with ourselves, which actually leads to my next question. Um, what does self-care and self-compassion look like for you now? So I guess that all of these things that you just mentioned, you were not doing them for a long time. So what impact do they have on your life now?
Yeah, you're quite right. I mean, until late 30s, I don't even think I realized I had a body, which is what I hear a lot of people say. Even though it's big, I think it was so big and overwhelming that I just cut it off and numbed out in kind of that in terms of nervous system at a freeze level. Um, I think the biggest gift I've given myself is an internal voice that is kind, and that took a lot of work. So come on, honey, you've got this. Like I'll say that, or um, I know you're not ready. You want to finish this, but realistically, is that going to be helpful for your body? And it's the cultivation of that internal supporter has been really really helpful for me in terms of compassion. Um, but that voice comes from slowing down the body and anchoring into the body, because the voice of the mind is and excited. There's a positive of it. We could do this and we could do that. But actually, that back of the body voice, as I call it, is I know you want to do that, but could we do that tomorrow? There's like an internal negotiator now, and that's helped me with my compassion, the voice in my body.
Yeah. We all need to start listening to slowing down and listening to our inner voices, especially to slow down.
Mhm.
I agree, absolutely. And I've seen on social media, and we actually exchanged some emails about the ABA and PBS campaign. So you believe that these can harm. So these approaches, maybe it would be good actually to explain to the audience what they are, and what are your concerns about them. Why do you think they would change the behavior of neurodivergent people?
Yeah, so if you want to look at the history and the position statement of NDC, do go and look on the website because the
Hmm.
research and is all of there. But in a nutshell, and having trained as a teacher in the education system and taught for 20 years, you are trained in positive behavior interventions and support. So that is in a nutshell, externally observe someone's behavior and use reward or consequence. I'm not even going to use the word punishment, although ABA was based in that. Rewards and consequence to externally modify behavior. So as a teacher, I'm thinking like, yeah, that works. Um, However, um, the concerns that I have and we have at NDC is that what is working? So is what is working is that there's an increase in masking of neurodivergent traits. So externally, there's a normativism happening that the person is reducing stimming, um, not moving around in their chair, not showing distress behaviors externally that are driven by a nervous system response to threat in the environment, whether that's sensory or whatever. If that's what's working, that's harmful for neurodivergent people.
Because
So
it's repressive.
yeah, and we know from the research that masking increases the risk of self-harm and distress behavior of all sorts and suicidality and just love and yeah, it's catastrophic. So the alternative will be let's stop the external gaze and making judgments about what we see externally and be curious about the internal experience of someone who's neurodivergent. So relationship, we've already talked about this,
Yes.
what's happening internally, and building rapport and co-creating ways of being together in our environments and our organizations that meet the internal needs, rather than just doing to and modifying externally. I hope that explains it.
Yes, yes, that makes absolute sense. And yeah, I when I think about my daughter, for example, she stims a lot, and I just find it beautiful, and I wouldn't want it any other way, and I will never tell her, at the beginning, yes, when I was in denial and, oh, stop moving, or when you have that embarrassment phase, that you're not ready to accept it. But now I wouldn't want her any other way. It's actually joyful to look at all her stimming, and we just need to change our perception. And yeah, neurodivergent people, and children more specifically, because they are growing up and learning how to be in the world, they should never be repressed to stimming and having to mask so much to fit in an education setting. And also, I'm still reading, because I'm a slow reader. One of your books, I think it's Embodied Education. Yeah. Um, so there's a lot about this on there, right? And I will link the book on the episode's release as well. But do you want to tell us a bit more about that book? Because you wrote it with your husband, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was so we were both in education, combined 40 years, so approximately 20 years each. Um, and um, and embodied education, we can't say it's research because it was informal views. We gathered information via informal views, but it's a vision for education, the way we educate, that is bottom up, nervous system friendly, relationally based, heart based, bringing together mind and body into the educational environments, and um, and and bringing back those strands of metacognition, intuition, and instinct in as ways of knowing. So we can know through our minds, we can know through our bodies, and we can also know through our intuition, our sixth sense, and that's where the spirituality comes in. And if we were to co-create education spaces that allowed for different ways of knowing, then creativity and innovation would be sparked from it. So it's kind of a model, it's a vision.
Mhm.
It's been looked at by some education researchers, and they're like, we're so far away from this. But
Yeah.
it was a vision, and we wrote it really for ourselves, for our own kind of. It's almost like a, oh my goodness, what did we do for 40 years to young people? Oh my word.
Yeah.
And this is what we would have preferred to have been able to facilitate, which we did in our own ways in our classrooms. But as a system, it can do better.
Yeah. And so I guess that was one of the reasons why you left the education system.
I was lucky that I got voluntary redundancy. So I had burnout, and then I ended up I was off sick, and then there was an opportunity for voluntary redundancy. So that was, I couldn't have gone back. Once I unmasked and realized who I was like, that's just I don't fit with that system. And my husband also, he was ready for a different experience. So yeah,
Yeah,
that was one
everything
of the reasons.
happens for a reason. Yeah, it took burnouts for you, but you're now in the right place. So that's good.
Yeah.
Um, Now going to self-acceptance. Um, we talked a lot about the body, and you talk a lot about the body in your work. So what has helped you feel safe and connected to your body as a neurodivergent person? We might have covered this already, but is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I think the main thing is um, uh, kind of listening and realizing that it's not, the body isn't doing to me, it's doing for me. It's giving me messages and sensations that I need to listen to. And yes, they're big and they're amplified, and I was fearful of it, and it's an ongoing journey, reducing the fear of these big amplified sensations and experiences that I have in my body. Um, and listening and trying to work out what it's telling me has made me feel safer, as well as doing somatic work and resolving traumatic trauma that was stored in my system at an embodied level, not just at a talking it through, but actually completing the stress cycles and the trauma cycles. That has all helped me feel safer.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of somatic techniques, is there um, any specific exercise or a tool that you can share or you can recommend? We just heard about how you ground yourself, with your feet. That's very important. But is there a sensory tool that you use often?
Yeah, so like all of us, headphones, your favorite scent, weighted blanket. So we have the usual sensory tools, but the self-holding exercises of connecting to the body, which is actually the work of Peter Levine, who founded somatic experiencing and did his PhD on PTSD. Those self-holding exercises are so non-evasive. They're not harmful to us, but they start us to connect. I've just done them there. That's basically it. um, they are the one doing that every day, almost as like we would brush our teeth. Eventually, our whole, we start to feel safer with ourselves. Um, yeah, that is my go-to.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. You just reminded me of it. I had forgotten about it. I need to start doing it again. I remember from the course it was quite helpful. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Okay, we are now approaching the last questions of the interview or the last section. I'm going to start asking a few questions that are more about you and your supports. And the first one is, who is your biggest support on your journey?
Yeah, my husband.
I thought it would be.
Yeah, he has taken this complete journey with me, and uh, we work hard at co-regulation and supportive relationship, an authentic relationship as well. And so, without that, yeah, he is my main support.
Good. And how do you treat yourself with regards to your well-being? Again, I think we covered all of this. You mentioned swimming, your somatic experiences, but is there anything else that you do? There's
Yeah,
the nature as well, the walks.
the the spirituality aspect.
Yep.
For me, I meet my spiritual needs regularly. So connection, meaning, purpose, and connected to something bigger than myself. So, so I have very specific. I meet my spiritual needs through ritual, through earth-based practices, and that's a big part of how I look after myself. That I can connect to something bigger than me, a purpose, my work, but also the world, nature, other people, and remember that it's however much I get caught in my own experience, I'm actually connected to something bigger. And that's why for me spiritual needs is such an important part of well-being. Not I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about
Yes.
meaning making, making sense of our lives.
Yeah. It's quite easy when you hear the word spirituality that you start thinking about religion, which,
Mm,
for some people
absolutely.
that's going to be the connection. But yeah, that's another thing I'm still trying to figure out myself. I understand, but I don't think I'm spiritually connected in any way. So we might talk about this later when we meet in person. You can give me some tips.
Sure.
Yes. And who would you say is your biggest inspiration?
Wow. Um, I knew this question was coming. Well, I'm gonna say it's my children. Um, because of what because of them as individuals, they're all so different. I've got three children, they're all so different. But if you really listen to your children, they can help you grow. Well, I found, I'm going to only speak to my own experience. If I listen to my children, I grow.
Definitely.
So
And
what
that,
else?
yeah,
Yeah.
what else do you need? And it
Yeah.
goes back to that power dynamics that you were talking about earlier, right? We tend to see ourselves as the adult, when the person who knows best, but very often is the opposite. And we should definitely listen to our children more, not just in terms of learning, but in terms of their needs. Yes, they are immature because they are children. Well, when they are younger, I know yours are adults already, but yeah, that's great, and it's good to have a different answer on this question. Yeah, because I ask all my guests, and everyone is very. I might need to rephrase this question because it's quite difficult to have one person as your biggest inspiration. So, well, you have three,
Mm.
and yeah, that's beautiful. And if you were a superhero, or had a superpower, what would that be, and how would you use it to make the world a better place for neurodivergent people?
Um, oh my word. So who would it be? Um, I think uh so that kind of, I'm thinking of Superman really. I mean, I'm not really, it's really hard question this because I'm not really into that kind of fantasy stuff. But
Yeah.
the thing I love about Superman is he serves. So he uses his superpowers to
Mhm.
serve. It's always beyond self with him. And so if I would want that, and what I would do it is to slow, you know how you can kind of like whiz around the world and slow down
Yep.
time. So I just slow down time for everybody to give everybody just a little bit more space, and to support nature, and the world, and the climate. So that's my answer today. It would be different on another day.
No, that's very, very interesting. And also, I had another guest who also said Superman, and he mentioned that he's from another planet, and therefore he feels like an alien on Earth. So sometimes, you hear from different neurodivergent people that they feel alienated because they don't feel like they belong here. So that's another connection with Superman. So yes, very, very interesting. But slowing the world down would definitely be um, a good thing. When we think about COVID now, it's not that long ago we had the chance to slow down, but it feels like we don't even remember that anymore. It's just everything goes back to normal, and we don't value the important things because again, this world is can be very, very overwhelming. And I don't know how much you are into music. Is there a song? I started adding this question because I'm passionate about music, and there's many songs that would capture my life perfectly. But is there one for you that resonates a lot with your journey?
Um, so the two have just come to mind there. One is Ironic by Alanis Morissette. Yeah, because there's a lot of I've that kind of like you have this and you have that, and that kind of for me it's very much um like I'm trying to move beyond the binary and the polarities of things, and that there's and that song really kind of you think you've got control, but then something else happens. So that one,
Yeah.
but also this the sound of silence. It says,
Mhm.
"Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yep.
I've come to die." For me, you learn most in silence. I can connect to deep intuitive senses through silence. I think we have a lot to learn from the non-speaking autistic community, and those different ways of knowing. And so um, less words for me has always brought the greatest gifts and wealth and well-being. Um, and so yeah, that's an important song.
And speech is not the only form of communication
That could be
anyway.
a whole different podcast.
Yes.
Really
Definitely.
interested in that. All those other ways, but yeah, I've deliberately not gone there today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I like both songs. Yeah, Ironic reminds me of my teenage years. It was one of my favorite songs, and The Sound of Silence is actually one of my daughter's melodies favorites as well, because they have a different version in the Trolls, in the movie.
Do they?
Yes, they do. It's Branch is a bit so I don't know how much you know about the Trolls, but it's Poppy and Branch, they are the main characters.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, but he's a bit grumpy. She's very positive and very bubbly, and yeah, and he's grumpy, so he doesn't like talking. So she starts singing when they go on a trip, and then it tells her to shut up, but she starts singing The Sound of Silence, and my daughter loves it, and she sings it even.
That's brilliant. Love it. Mhm.
Yeah. And if you had the chance to go back in time, what would you tell your younger self?
Yeah, I've been asked this. The first time I was asked it, I got really I was like, I could barely get the words out. But yeah, I think I've got a little bit more resilience. It would be, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yep.
Any age, I'll go back any age. There is nothing wrong with you. Stop searching
Yep.
for a cure for yourself, because there's nothing wrong with you. Thanks.
Yep. And what are your hopes for the future in general?
That we move beyond the word supremacy. I'm going to pick up that theme now, that the only way of thinking, expressing, and communicating is at this level and through words, including written words, and that we develop other ways of communication, embodied communication, emotional communication, co-regulation, understanding that our body communications interact, that we need to take responsibility for our nervous system states, and that we start to create ways that are in the world healthy for our body minds, all neurotypes. I think that is my biggest hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are amazing hopes for the future. And finally, if your heart had a voice, what would it tell us?
Remember everything is interconnected. So you connected to the world, you connected to the person next to you, regardless of what your mind has to say about them. And so what affects one person actually ripples out and affects everybody. It's the golden rule, isn't it? Treat people as you would have them treat you. It's kind of that. It's that, it's everything's interconnected. That would be what my heart would say.
Yeah. Kay, thank you so much. It's been an amazing. I lost track of time. I think, yeah, 1 hour and a few minutes or something like that. And yeah, again, I'm very grateful for your time today and for sharing all of your lived journey and your experience at Neurodiverse Connection. And yeah, we will stay connected. At least the two of us will stay connected for sure. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been absolutely my pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of it.
You're most welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening or watching this episode of the Neurodiverse Voices podcast. Also, a huge thank you to today's guest for sharing their story with such honesty and insight. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or follow us on social media. It really helps others finding the podcast. You can find all links to everything we talked about today in the episode description. This podcast is about connection, community, and change. So let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, take care, be kind to yourself, and keep embracing difference.